Hey guys, it's Coach Steven here, slgfitness.com. Welcome back. Today we are going to discuss hamstring anatomy and function. Let's take a look at the hamstrings here. You see here we have the back of the thigh. We have our semimembranosus or semitendinosus. Those hamstrings run on the inner portion of the thigh. Then we have our biceps femoris, which is divided up into our long head and our short head. So take a good look at that. It covers the back of the thigh. So as I mentioned here, the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, the biceps femoris, short head, and the biceps femoris, the long head. So you may be asking, what are the actions of these hamstrings? Well, first, they're knee flexors. So think of doing a lying hamstring curl or a seated hamstring curl. Much like the bicep, you're flexing the back of your leg. You're flexing those hamstrings. Another action is the hip extension. So think of doing a Romanian deadlift or a stiff leg deadlift and coming out of the bottom, extending that hip back. So there's really no knee movement there. It's an isolated hip movement. And lastly, it's a decelerator. This is often overlooked, but the decelerator function is huge in injury prevention. So how do we train this? We use dynamic training, sprints. Sprints are a great tool to help train the decelerator function. So what are some tips that we can implement into some of our training for hamstrings? Well, first off, keeping your feet straight. So let's say you're doing a lying curl and you don't want your toes to be pointing in or out. You want them to be straight. When they're pointing in or out, it's going to inhibit parts of the hamstring. So to make the move as efficient as possible, keep your feet straight. Same thing goes for when we're doing Romanian deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts, things like that. Controlling the end ranges. Now, especially for RDLs, stiff leg deadlifts, getting down into this bottom position where the hamstrings are lengthened the most, you really want to control that portion because the hamstrings are stretched. So with that heavy load, there's a real good chance for injury if you're not careful in controlling that. And the same goes for the opposite end, like when we're doing lying hamstring curls, seated hamstring curls, getting that hamstring flexed, much like you're flexing your bicep. Getting that hamstring flexed, you want to control that squeeze and really target those hamstrings. Tip 3, chin tucked, neutral spine, and think hips back and forward. We discussed the chin tuck and neutral spine in the quad video. So to go over that again, for the chin tuck, you want to think double chin. So you want to give yourself a double chin. See how I'm doing this? Not this, which puts a lot of strain on that neck. Just think back and down just a little, slightly. So double chin. Neutral spine, and then for our Romanian deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts, you want to think hips forward and back. So think hips forward and back, forward and back. If you don't think that, you're going to bring in a lot of lower back, and it's going to set yourself up for injury. And lastly, we have sprints, which I covered here for the actions. We want to include sprints to work that decelerator function. It's very key to help prevent injury. And lastly here, we're going to go over some mistakes. Not spending time in the short position. So when you've got that hamstring flexed, spend time there. That's where it hurts the most, when you squeeze. So spend time there and make sure you're really hitting those hamstrings hard. Exploding out of the bottom of a lying curl. At the bottom of a lying curl, that first 15 degrees is all calves. So beyond that point is when the hamstrings start to kick in. So when you're exploding out of that bottom, it's all hamstrings, and then that momentum carries that weight up and effectively not even hitting the hamstrings. So another common tip that I can give you is when you're going down on that lying curl, stop around 15 degrees from the bottom. That's going to help prevent those hamstrings, or those calves rather, from kicking in and taking over the movement. Mistake 3, outside of your active range of motion. This can go for the Romanian deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts, going down too far and really bringing in the low back. You want to go down to where your low back starts to kick in. So about right there, anything past that, you see my low back. So staying within that active range of motion to limit that lower back. And lastly, letting your calves control the eccentric. So when you're letting the weight come down on that lying curl, you want to have that mind-muscle connection where you're letting the hamstrings control that movement. It's very typical to let the calves do that, and efficiently, it's not very good for the hamstrings. So it's taking them out of the movement and not working as hard as they should and could be. So there you have it, guys. That's hamstrings. Like I said, in the description, there'll be a little bit more detail. Also, slgfitness.com. Check out some more information there covering the hamstrings. So hopefully you can take some of this information and apply it to some of the gym things that you're doing. So appreciate it as always, guys. Until next time, thank you very much.